What?
Welcome to a brand new
Yeah,
video.
welcome back.
Yeah, sure up. Okay, so it's been over a year since I did a fanfiction video. And I was like, you know what? I got like over 6,000 views off it. May as well do another fanfiction video.
That's
And
not that's not actually what happened.
yeah, sure
I
up.
actually,
Yeah.
I,
No,
I
no,
actually brought it up while we were playing zombies.
no. I wanted to do another fanfic anyway, but I didn't know when.
Hmm.
Anyway, before I actually did my first fanfic, I was actually going to do a RWBY fanfic in the first place, but I didn't ever do it, and I'm doing it now because I am black. Is that not really?
Oh,
Okay, so this is a RWBY fanfic. It's a Yuri fanfic. You know, it's that spicy quality stuff of a Ruby and Weiss. It's going to be an interesting one. So
like
it's it's going to be interesting. So let's start
interesting.
with the spicy meatball. Okay,
What?
okay,
Don't ever say that again.
okay. Two girls walked side by side down a dirt path. They had just returned from their initiation in the Emerald Forest and in record time. For all it had been hyped up to be, neither girl found the trial particularly challenging, although that could be attributed to how well they worked together after laying eyes upon one another. Okay, okay.
Ooh, getting spicy already.
No one found this more surprising than Weiss, who somewhat grudgingly, sorry, I can't read, accepted that her initial impression of Ruby had been wrong. Despite her rather quirky personality, the girl was an artist in the field. Weiss was honestly impressed. Even with all her training, she could barely keep up with Ruby in battle. Not that she would have an easy time admitting that. Weiss was still her proud self, but was not foolish enough to look a gift horse in the mouth. She rarely had the luxury of working with people she deemed competent. Can't read, shut up. And wanted to
I'll
make sure
punch you, Dan.
wanted to make sure that her appreciation did not go unnoticed. The locker room was empty when they got back, and the wife figured it would still be a while before all the others finished in the forest. Sitting down on the bench, she unhooked her rapier from her belt and began to take off her boots while Ruby fiddled with her locker. I thought I was going to say something else then.
Oh
Okay,
yes, Dan.
okay. While Weiss thought it had been a good idea to wear heels in combat was beyond her, and her aching feet were just definitely making her regret that lapse in judgment. Ruby, bending over to gently place Crescent Rose into the locker, spoke for the first time since leaving the forest. I think I'm going to take a
Crescent
shower
Rose, if you
before.
know what I mean.
No, of course I know what I mean, but I think I'm going to take a shower before heading out. Hmm. Weiss looked up, distracted, and found her face less than a foot from Ruby's butt. Nice. Oh, I wish I could do that in real life. Okay. More than
Yeah,
enough
spicy
time.
already.
More than enough time had passed for Ruby to finish putting away her weapon, but she was still bending over to make sure Weiss didn't miss the view. Oh, Weiss couldn't stop herself from blushing. Something wrong? Ruby asked, smirking and making no effort to change her position. Weiss cleared her throat and shifted to stare at her own lap. Good idea. She closed her eyes, embarrassed by how she was acting. She had no idea what she was doing. The situation was becoming increasingly awkward, and the seconds seemed to drag on forever in the silence. Ruby turned to face her with a questioning look, surprised to see the normally haughty girl incredibly flustered. Right, well, Ruby trailed off, grabbing a crimson towel from her locker before closing it. Without another word, she began to walk towards the shower room, making sure to add a slight sachet. Yeah,
Like sachet.
sachet. Halfway there, she glanced back at Weiss, pleased to see her face was completely red, and that she was clearly trying to get the best view she could of Ruby out of the corner of her eye. Unable to suppress a grin, Ruby continued in the showers. Before the shower room door had even swung shut, Weiss's mind had begun to work furiously. Does she expect me to follow? Does she want me to follow? Weiss considered that tantalizing thought for a moment. No way, she's just trying to jerk the supposed Ice Queen around. Weiss wasn't convincing herself. She did catch herself absent-mindedly, fucking long words, stealing glances at Ruby back in the forest, and was sure that Ruby caught her more than once. I was admiring her technique, that's all. Nothing sexual about. Before she could even finish that thought, images of what Ruby might be doing in the shower started flowing through her mind. No, stop it. She's just toying with me. Weiss tried to think of other, completely unrelated things, but each time she tried, the same thoughts of Ruby came right back. After a couple of minutes of trying to endure the painfully, same, trying to endure the painfully erotic torture. I don't say it's torture. She couldn't take it anymore. Something of thought. Weiss let out an annoying. I don't know how to make that sound. I guess let's say it's a sigh, okay? Stormed over to the shower room and shoved open the door. You saw Ruby now only dressed in a towel and on the far side of the room in one of the stalls. Ruby wasn't facing her, but Weiss's angry footsteps echoed loudly off of the tile walls, ensuring that she could definitely hear her coming. Weiss stomped across the room, enraged with the other girl, that beautiful, infuriating girl. Ruby turned around just in time for Weiss to grab her wrists and pin them to the wall next to her head. Ruby had the biggest grin Weiss had ever seen on her face. Ruby let out an almost, I exaggerate, let out a sigh. About time, I almost thought you wouldn't take the hints. Shut up, Weiss demanded, and roughly pressed her lips onto Ruby's. They were amazingly soft, and Weiss felt like she was falling into a trance. She had waited too long for this moment, and she was going to savor it. Unfortunately, her need to breathe overrode her rapidly growing desire to ravage the girl in front of. Holy fuck!
Getting a bit intense already.
Fucking hell. Okay, and she still had her eyes closed and mouth slightly open, but then giggled and slowly ran her tongue over her lips. This little maneuver annoyed Weiss slightly. She didn't like the thought of Ruby toying with and manipulating her. Laugh it up, Weiss thought. It won't be long until you're moaning my name. Kissing her more ferociously. Weiss punched her tongue into Ruby's mouth and enthusiastically greeted by Ruby's own.
I thought you were going to say that Weiss punched Ruby.
No. Okay, Ruby moaned into the kiss and suddenly became much higher pitched when Weiss positioned her leg between both of Ruby's, just enough to make contact. Breaking off the kiss, Weiss clumsily planted kisses wherever she could from Ruby's cheeks, neck, and ending up near her ear. She gave Ruby's earlobe an affectionate nibble. Fuck's sake. Weiss continued down her neck, leaving small red marks everywhere her lips made contact with the pale skin. When she found her path downward, blocked by the towel, she impatiently grabbed it with her teeth and yanked it away, letting it fall to the floor. Weiss had to pause to admire Ruby's naked form, pleased to see that it was just better than she had ever imagined. Near flawless pale skin, the only blemishes being the ones that Weiss had just made with her lips, small but perky breasts, and a slightly toned, muscular stomach. Like what you see, Ruby teased, pulling Weiss out of her trance. The corners of Weiss's mouth twitched upward into a small grin. It sounds like rape or something. Okay, and she gave Ruby a quick. Listen, my mind. It's very fucked up, okay? Leave me alone. And she gave Ruby a quick peck to show her appreciation. Ooh.
She a bird or something?
Finally releasing Ruby's hands, Weiss used her own to cup Ruby's breasts. They were smaller than hers, but she would enjoy them all the same. Kneading and squeezing, Weiss kissed Ruby softly, more focused on her hands than lips. Ruby seized the opportunity, invading Weiss's mouth with her tongue, exploring it to her heart's desire. Weiss twirled her thumbs around Ruby's nipples, feeling them growing stiff. Removing herself from the kiss, she bent down and began to kiss Ruby's right breast, leaving the other one to her more skilled left hand. Sucking and kissing, she painted around her nipple with a tongue, making Ruby moan. Ruby had her hands on Weiss's hair, stroking and petting every time Weiss made her moan with pleasure. Ruby could feel the arousal growing between her legs. Weiss, she muttered, pulling the girl back up to kiss her. She began to slowly rub herself against Weiss's leg, wishing she would hurry up and just fuck her already. Okay. Ruby loved what this girl was making her feel, but now all she wanted was Weiss to push her until she was screaming her name. She wrapped her arms around Weiss's neck for leverage, supporting herself on the strong shoulders and increasing her hips pace, hoping Weiss would take the hint. Luckily for Ruby, Weiss wasn't so slow on the uptake this time, thrusting her hand down straight to Ruby's crotch and immediately feeling her arousal. Rubbing Ruby's clit with small circular motions, Weiss pushed herself fully against the wall for support since she could feel Ruby starting to lose strength as she was enveloped in pleasure. Ruby was grinding on her leg at a fast, steady pace, closing her eyes in bliss as Weiss picked up the pace with her hand. Ruby started letting out small, short gasps which only encouraged her to go faster. "Oh, Weiss, Weiss," Ruby moaned. She knew it wouldn't be long, nor this gorgeous girl working her delicate fingers on her clit, letting her grind on her leg, making it glisten with wetness. Weiss had buried her face where Ruby's neck and shoulders met, kissing the spot as she furiously worked her hand, needing to make Ruby come. "Weiss," Ruby wailed, arching her back and desperately clasping to Weiss's neck to keep her from falling. Her entire body spasmed as she rode out her orgasm on Weiss's leg, tiny stars popping in and out of her vision. She slumped onto Weiss, not able to hold herself up. Several moments passed before Ruby managed to regain control of her body, still breathing heavily. She lifted her head off of Weiss's shoulder and looked her in the eye. Weiss was smirking, clearly pleasured with her work. She opened her mouth to speak, but immediately cut off by Ruby, pulling her in for a deep kiss. "My turn," said Ruby, pulling back. Weiss barely had no time to widen. I said spread nearly. Don't know why. Weiss barely had time to widen her eyes in surprise before Ruby had grabbed her and flipped around so that she was now the one pinned to the wall. "Take off your dress already," Ruby demanded, almost insulted that Weiss hadn't ripped all of her own clothes off yet. "Make me," Weiss challenged. That was the answer Ruby had been hoping for. She stretched her arm out to grab the lever that controlled the shower head. "Do it or I'll make you even more wet than I know you already are." "You wouldn't dare," Weiss growled, glaring at Ruby. All she got in response was a devilish grin, and Weiss saw the muscles in Ruby's arm tense to pull the lever. "Fine, you win." Weiss conceded, pulling off a small jacket and tossing it into a nearby bench. "Help me with this," Weiss said, flipping around and motioning to her back. Ruby leaned in and rested her chin on Weiss's shoulder, while her hand hastily tried to untie the corset. Weiss turned her head to kiss Ruby on the cheek and then the mouth when Ruby turned toward her. As soon as her corset was loose enough, Weiss pulled it off as Ruby yanked her skirt down and off, tossing both to join the jacket on the bench. Now dressed in only a silvery bra with matching panties, Weiss felt quite exposed, but Ruby didn't think that was enough. Holding Weiss's hands against the wall to prevent Weiss from stopping her, Ruby grabbed the clasp of Weiss's bra in her teeth and expertly unhooked it, letting it all fall to the floor. Ruby flipped
You wear a bra,
Weiss.
don't you?
Yeah, I'm wearing it right now, actually. I'm joking. Ruby flipped Weiss back around to face her, but Weiss instinctively covered her breast with her hands, blushing. Suppressing a chuckle, Ruby leaned in to kiss Weiss and found a little resistance when she gently grabbed her arms to uncover her chest. Appreciating that Weiss wasn't going to make this difficult, Ruby quickly worked her way down on her beautiful body. There would be other times for Ruby to familiarize herself with Weiss's body in its entirety, but right now she only had one goal in mind. She closed her eyes as she planted kisses down on Weiss's body, stopping when she met with the musky scent. Ruby opened her eyes to see Weiss's soaked silver panties an inch from her nose. Ruby shoved her face into Weiss's crotch, taking deep breaths. of the sweet aroma. Really, Weiss whispered. I think I just heard the door to the locker room open. Ruby turned her head to the shower room door, and when she turned back, she looked back at Weiss with an evil grin. Then you'll have to be quiet. Already, thinking she had wasted enough time, Ruby pulled Weiss's pants down and immediately began to mouth over a clit. Ruby, Weiss started to protest, but any thoughts of stopping vanished when she felt Ruby's tongue inside of her. Clasping her hand over her mouth to try and stifle her moans, she placed the other on Ruby's head.
Stifle, Dan.
Joe?
Stifle.
Joe, shut up. I can't read.
Stifle.
She placed her other on Ruby's head, trying to push her deeper. Holy fucking shit. Having Ruby's head in between her legs was the most pleasurable thing she had ever experienced. The feel of her sucking on her clit, massaging her tongue, feeling it curl when it was all inside of her. All of it was infinitely better than all of those lonely nights where she was just with her and her fingers. Soon she started to feel her knees tremble, and the moans escaping from her hands were getting louder and louder. Her eyes were shut tight as she pushed into Ruby's head harder, begging for her to give her the release. Finally, Ruby found a sensitive spot with her tongue, and Weiss couldn't hold it anymore. Weiss cried out through her hand, clearly audible as the sound bounced off the walls. Her inner walls clenched from Ruby's tongue, and Ruby felt a gush of fluid that she happily lapped up. As Weiss convulsed, squirting more fluid into Ruby's waiting mouth, she slid down the tile wall, her legs were unable to support her. Ruby dutifully kept her mouth in place, lapping up all last bits of Weiss's juices. When Weiss was satisfied she hadn't missed anything, she sat up and leaned on the wall next to Weiss. Of all the people, of course you would be the squirter. Weiss only giggled and leaned her head onto Ruby's shoulder. Ruby nuzzled her hair and kissed the top of her head, reaching her arm behind Weiss to pull her into a small hug. This happy moment was soon interrupted by a sound of someone closing a locker in another room. Weiss froze. She completely forgot what the situation was after she had orgasmed. Ruby, get your clothes on, she whispered urgently. I threw them down a laundry chute before you even came near. You put yours on. I'm not putting those back on. I'll make them filthy. Ruby casually glanced around the room, looking for other options. She spotted her discarded towel, and she was cracked to grin, forming a plot. Looks like we're using this then, Ruby said cheerily. What? That thing will barely cover both of us, Weiss exclaimed. It's that or you mess up your fancy little dress, Ruby retorted, grinning ear to ear. Weiss took a moment to think. Fine, get in front of me, she said, grabbing a towel and wrapping it around them both while Ruby was in position. They awkwardly marched into the door, preparing to run to their lockers. For fuck's sake, on three, Weiss whispered into Ruby's ear. One, Ruby shoved open the door and took it off while Weiss forced to follow from how tightly the towel was wrapped. Yang, who had been leaning with her ear against the shower room door, saw the ridiculous sight and burst out laughing, clutching her sides. Ruby and Weiss arrived at their lockers, and Weiss hurried to put on a shirt and some exercise shorts she had stored. Blake was standing not far away, looking into her locker. She lazily glanced over the small scene, rolled her eyes, and turned away. No sooner had Weiss pulled her shorts on that Ruby now dressed herself, grabbed her hand and pulled, forcing her to follow. They ran out of the room, leaving Blake to tend to Yang, who was now rolling on the floor, choking back tears of laughter.
Okay.
Done. Oh god.
That was it?
That was it, yeah. That was actually faster than I thought it was going to be.
Yes, Dan, you said 20 minutes.
Listen, we'll do a longer one next time. How about that?
Yeah, okay.
Alright. That was it. That was another great fan fiction from me. 5 likes, and I'll do another one in 2 weeks' time. Yes. 5 likes, you see. I get no views on my fucking videos. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Say goodbye, Joe, mate.
No, you won't. I'm gone. Bye.
Fuck off.